When should people with workers' compensation claims return to work? And what should injured workers think about when deciding whether or not to do so, whether or not to go back to work? So I tell people it's best to go back to work as soon as possible. As soon as you're able to go back to work, you go back to work. But that's advice number 2. Advice number 1, before you do anything that I tell you to do, go talk to your doctor. Make sure you have medical clearance. Make sure you have input and the advice of your doctor after you have a discussion with them about your job, about how you're feeling, about your condition, what the pros and cons are about going back to work. Can you re-injure the same body part? Can you make it worse? Those are discussions you want to have and should have with your doctors before considering going back to work. Before you listen to me, talk to your doctor. With that in mind, assuming your doctor has cleared you to return to work, whether it's full duty or light duty, and you feel comfortable with what your doctors advise you, then you listen to me. Go back to work as soon as possible. Under most circumstances, it's the smart thing to do. It's going to put you on the road to getting the medical treatment you need, maximizing the dollar value that your case is worth, and riding off into the sunset. Going back to work puts you on that path. How will going back to work affect your workers' compensation claim? Can doing so cut your benefits short, and can it impact your settlement? Quick answer there, yes and yes. Going back to work can cut your benefits short, it can impact your settlement, but it's not always a bad thing, because cutting your benefits short and impacting your settlement, it's not always a negative in the long term. First of all, holding out, staying out longer than your doctor recommends, or trying to prolong by staying out rarely helps you, because your medical records are going to show what your abilities and disabilities are. Your condition is reflected in your medical records. Your doctor's been following you. Your physical therapist has been following you. They're charting all of the improvements that you've been making over time. The insurance company sends you to see their doctor periodically. They're keeping track of the improvements that you're making over time. And trying to hold out and staying out of work longer than you really should be, it's going to be apparent by looking at the medical report. It's going to be clear by comparing all those medical reports and that lineage of treatment records that, hey, you're at the point in time where you probably should be on your way back to work. And if you're dragging your feet and staying out, it's not going to look good for you. It's not going to look good for your case. It's going to hurt the overall settlement value, and it's not something that you want to do. You want to put your best foot forward, look as positive as you can to the judge, and going back to work does that for you, and it shows that you're serious about you and your case and getting back to work and doing the right thing, and it's very helpful across the board. So staying out of work is not always the best thing. It doesn't make you look good. It does cut your benefits short going back to work. If you go back to work at full duty, or some people go back and actually earn more, your weekly benefits will stop, most likely, under that set of circumstances. And again, I'm speaking from a New York State perspective. Yes, your benefits will cut short, but it also could help you in the long run. In circumstances with scheduled loss of use, New York State extremities, arms, legs, hands, feet, fingers, toes, you can actually get more money by going back to work sooner than by holding out and staying out of work. Staying out of work doesn't always show that you have a more significant or a more severe or a more valuable injury. Your records are going to reflect your overall level of disability, and going back to work sooner rather than later generally is the right thing to do. Why is returning to work after a workers' compensation claim a good idea? And isn't it better to just try to stay on comp? So sticking with the theme here, no. Try to go back to work. Going back to work more often than not will result in you getting more out of your case, and especially when we're talking about scheduled loss of use cases. So what's a scheduled loss case? It's extremities. It's arms, legs, hands, feet, fingers, and toes. Those are what we're talking about. The value of a scheduled loss of use claim, the amount of money that you will get for a broken hand, a fractured wrist, carpal tunnel syndrome, any extremity injury, the amount of money that that case is worth is based upon how much leftover disability do you have after you're done treating with your doctors, after everyone says there's nothing else they can do for you, how much leftover permanent impairment do you have? And whatever that amount of impairment is, and that's your doctor's going to tell us his opinion, and the insurance company doctor's going to tell us their opinion. They're usually one high, one low, but they're going to tell us what they think your level of permanent disability is. Whatever that percentage of impairment is corresponds to a number of weeks of benefits, which are payable to you at the total rate of workers' compensation, which is 2/3 of your salary, subject to a statutory maximum. The law has a max weekly rate that you can get, and it changes every year. For instance, if you earn $600 per week, you get 2/3 of that per week. You get $400 a week. So total loss of use of an arm gets you 312 weeks of compensation. If you have a 10% loss of use of the arm, you get 31.2 weeks payable at $400 a week. That's the value of your arm injury. Now, from that total number, whatever that number comes out to be, 31.2 times $400 a week is a $12,480 injury. If you have a $12,000 injury and you've been out on workers' compensation for 5 weeks and they've paid you $500 a week, well, that $2,500 that they've already paid you is going to get deducted out. So your $12,500 injury now just became a $10,000 injury. If you didn't lose any time from work, that 5 weeks of workers' comp that you just got from missing 5 weeks of work, you're earning your full salary. You're getting 5 weeks at $600 a week. You've made your salary for that 5 weeks. That's $3,000. $3,000 of gross income that you've made, and the insurance company gets zero deductions. So you got the $3,000 that you didn't get before, and you're getting the full value of your permanent injury, $12,500. So you just earned yourself more money by going back to work sooner. So that's why I always recommend going back to work sooner rather than later. Sticking with why returning to work is a good idea. We talked about why it's a good idea on scheduled loss cases, why it's better. You get your salary, plus you get the full value or a higher value of your permanent injury award because there's less credit to the carrier if you go back to work sooner. But on permanent partial disability cases, head, neck, and back cases, you are only compensated for your lost time. So you need to be out of work to get compensation. On permanent partial disability cases, insurance companies set reserves. They'll say, we've looked at this case, we've seen cases like this before, based upon your disability and your injury and the amount of money you earned and the treatment that you've gotten and the treatment that you might need, we're going to set aside this much money for your case down the road. This case is a $50,000 reserve. Staying out of work with a mild or very low level of disability is going to eat into those reserves. And God forbid you ever have a problem down the road, it takes a lot to get an insurance company to reevaluate what the reserve is on a case. So, you might be nickel and diming them at one point, but it's going to make it even that much harder to get treatment, to get more benefits. If you go back to work, it's apparent in your medical records as to what your level of disability is. So nickel and diming is not going to help you. It just makes you look bad. You're better off going back. If you need to continue with treatment, continue with treatment. But it shows that you're doing the right thing. You're doing everything you can to stay ahead of the game, to go back to work and hopefully put all this behind you. So even from your mental stability, going back to work sooner rather than later is a good idea. What if my doctor says I can go back to work, but I'm not ready? Can I stay on workers' comp and recover? You better have a good reason. If your doctor's clearing you to return to work and you don't go back or you don't try to go back, you better have a very good reason why you haven't. Once your doctor clears you, there's very few reasons out there that would allow you to stay on comp receiving benefits. It's like I said before, your medical records are going to be a reflection of your condition, your injuries, and your disability. So once your doctor clears you, you really need to get out there and try to find some work. If you want to give me a call, you or anybody, my phone number here, folks, 212-406-8989. I'm always happy to help. Are there any common mistakes injured workers make when returning to work, and what can they do to avoid them? The biggest common mistake I see injured workers make when they return to work is not following their doctor's orders. And it kind of gives you the idea that people are trying to not go back to work when they should. They're trying to prolong how long they stay out of work. And there's a good amount of clients that rush back to work and go back to work too soon. Some people just say, look, I can't stand sitting at home and I'd rather go sit at work and do the best I can and be in pain there. And that's fine. Talk to your doctor first. But there's also people that have really bad injuries and for whatever reason, they're not getting their benefits or they're not getting their full benefits. And you know what? They tell me I have 2 kids I got to feed. I have to go back to work. I'm sorry, but I'm going back. And I'll tell them, your doctor says you're 100% disabled. You shouldn't be doing anything. I'm looking at you. You're limping in and out of here. You're a train wreck. Talk to your doctor before you do anything. And they say, I'm not talking to anybody. I'm going back to work. I totally get it. And it's a shame because, by definition, if you're back at work, you can't be totally disabled and be working at the same time. Talk to your doctor. They could give you some advice. Your employer can give you different duties. But under any set of circumstances, before you go back to work, make sure you talk to your doctor. That's my number one biggest piece of advice. What if the doctor sent me back to work, but I'd rather do a different job? Say I make an attempt, but I decide I can no longer do the work because of physical or mental problems the accident caused. Well, if you tried and you can't go back to work, the first thing I always tell everybody who tries to return to work and can't do it, go see your doctor, because your medical records are going to show that you're disabled and then you tried to go back to work, and the record's going to show patients attempting to return to work next week or patient returned to work last week. So the medical records are showing you as working. If you try and you can't do it for whatever reason, the injuries, and they could be psychological injuries, and you stop, go back and see your doctor. This way the medical shows it, and that work period is bookended by a report that says you're going back and a report that says you're stopping. And this way it's clear to everybody involved what happened here, and explain that to the doctor. Hey, I tried to go back to work, but my back is killing me. I came home, I worked for a week, and every night I would come home, my back would be killing me, and finally on Friday I couldn't get out of bed. I went the whole weekend, and Monday morning it's still hurting. I can't do it, and I'm coming back to see the doctor. Make sure everything's documented properly. Fantastic question. I'm sorry you're going through such horrible injuries. If anybody has any other questions at any point in time, please feel free at any time. Give me a call, 212-406-8989. If you liked what you heard, if you like what I'm giving you, hit the like button. All right, thanks. Bye-bye.